Evening all, welcome back to Plasma Cannon Week in Dust 5144. Well, what should we talk about today? Well, I have a few topics, and this is something that I've been thinking about, and don't worry, it's not a troll one today. It may turn into a troll one, but it's not a troll one. Not meant to be a troll one. Anyway, I was thinking as I was returning from my week away about commercial models. Yes, I am that exciting. And I was sort of sat there thinking, you know, there's one or two things that really bother me about gaming today, and I'm just kind of baffled by them. The first one is still that the subscription model is still used, and I think this was quite an interesting one because when I first started playing Eve, 11 years ago, subscription was all the rage. I even subscribed to Planetside 2. I know I can't remember doing it, but it was back then a subscription model. Oh, sorry, Planetside 2, Planetside 1, you know, the original game. And I believe it was a monthly subscription. I could be wrong. Post in the comments if I got that wrong. But I know you had to give them your credit card, so there was something going on. And I remember sort of playing that game and not really considering that the subscription model was a bad thing. You know, I thought it was fair enough. And then obviously when Eve came along, I subbed to that because I was comfortable subbing to it because I'd done it for Planetside. And so began the long epic arc of Eve Online. And I think, to be honest, it's kind of incredible to think that they're still doing it when you think about all of the changes that have happened. And again, let me be clear. Let me maybe moderate that with a comment, because a lot of games, amazingly, are still actually playing, or rather using the subscription model. I think WoW still has subscription. Post in the comments if I've got that wrong. I remember talking to someone probably about 6 months ago about World of Warcraft. I actually know nothing about World of Warcraft. It was a disease that I managed to avoid. I took my pill and I managed to avoid it completely. But it was subscription model, and I think that obviously was making just a god ton of money. But I would imagine that if not already, it would eventually have moved to a free-to-play model with microtransactions. And it's funny because when Eve tried to do this, in a way, I mean, they never overtly did this. It was always covertly done. It started the whole Monocle Gate thing, which was a bit of an agenda because a lot of people rebelled against the Monocle piece. So they didn't like that CCP were charging for these very expensive items. But in essence, if they made the game free, what they tried to do effectively was a subscription model with microtransactions, which basically is that's just rude. But what they then have now come back to, I guess, is they're sticking with the sub model. And when you look at it, there's actually very little they can do to deviate away from it. Eve is just intertwined with the whole model. Now, when you look at games like War Thunder, which is a great example of microtransactions, and Planetside 2 as well, again, free to play. So they have a server load issue, obviously, because it then means that you never really can tell how many people are going to be playing your game. So you have then multiple servers. Planetside 2, I think, suffers from this quite a bit because obviously there's millions of players, or rather there was. Probably not millions, but there was hundreds of thousands of players at one point. So you had multiple servers, which meant that obviously, I guess that made it work. Whereas with Eve, it's all one server. Now, the reason I'm kind of going to this, and you're like, what are you on about? Mate, get to the bloody point. Is Elite Dangerous. Elite Dangerous is not going to be a subscription model. It's going to be a game that you pay for, and then you have the ability to play. Now, from what I can tell, they're trying to make, obviously, Elite a one-off payment, probably with microtransactions at some point. But it's a one-off payment that will give you the game. So you're buying it in the box, effectively. You download it, obviously, but you're buying it. And then in theory, you then have the game and you can play it. And then any updates that they bring, you obviously would have to pay additional money for, which I think some people are quite happy with, because that's the old add-on, I guess, commercial model, which doesn't always work. It has been a bit of a balls up sometimes, but I'm quite curious to see how they're going to make that work. I think the basic game of Elite is just going to work anyway. It's going to be what it is. But I think then it will be like all the add-ons. So maybe additional ships, maybe the ability to land on planets, maybe the ability to do other things is what you're then going to pay for. And in that kind of commercial model, people are obviously going to buy content. You pay for content. I'm always happy to pay for content. Things like, where's my fucking water on the iPad? If you've never played this game, it is Disney's version of crack cocaine. It is literally crystal blue meth. It is insanely addictive, and it's a game. It's just a pissy game, and I bought every single level for it, and I probably spent like 15 quid on it, and that's a real testament because I didn't mind, because I got a huge amount of content every time I put in put in my iTunes details, and I didn't mind. I was actually quite sort of happy to do that because it meant I got more levels, got more things to do. Now, for certain games, the model of that is a bit spurious. Like Eve was always a bit spurious. Like all of a sudden you can unlock a t-shirt. Ooh, a whole t-shirt. That's just utter watery piss bollocks. And I think that's exactly the kind of reason why it didn't work. It was because it didn't give you ships. It didn't give you content. It didn't give you access to systems that only you can go to if you're blah, blah. And probably nor should it, because that would have caused an almighty argument. And let's face it, CCP have created a community of people who just will argue over everything. And rightly so, rightly so. And I think this is kind of the issue that maybe Legion is going to have. So again, getting to the point finally, Legion is going to have this same problem where Legion is going to be, I believe, a free-to-play game. I don't know, could be wrong. At the moment, it's not even a game, so who knows? It's planned to be perhaps a free-to-play game. And that means obviously you're going to have the same challenges as Dust has. So how are you going to fund it? Well, we're going to use Aurum, so you can buy guns and suits. I don't think that's enough. I think you need more. I think people will buy Aurum if they feel content is going to be given to them. And I had an idea around this. In that there should be special missions that only Aurum buys you into. You can buy a license to go and hunt drones in particular reserves. You know, things like that. I think maybe that's the model that I would rather see Legion take. Yes, you can still buy your guns. Yes, you can still buy your suits. But people don't really want to do that. What they would rather have is if CCP said, right, here's the game, there you go, enjoy. But there are certain levels in the game that if you pay Aurum into, you can then get into and fight. Obviously, half of the community are just going to go absolutely, batshit crazy over that. But fuck them, they have to either pay or not play. I mean, that's kind of the thing. I'm counting myself with that, because if it's like, right, you have to do X, Y, Z, then that's your decision. You have to make that decision. But you probably shouldn't be able to completely pay to win. I think it shouldn't be like, oh, here's a Titan for $20,000 or whatever it is. Although people do that anyway. But, as long as it's not obviously pay to win, then I think, and as long as they can keep it balanced, then I think people won't mind paying for content. To be honest, Legion is important to CCP because the subscription model is not going to last forever. And with all of the competition that CCP now face, with other games that are coming that are just superior to Eve in every way, in my opinion, I think they have a real challenge ahead of them to make this game and world relevant for the next 10 years. They've made it 10 years so far, good on them. But now they have the challenge of Elite is back. The game this bloody game was, this whole universe is based upon. And Elite is bloody good. Star Citizen is looking incredibly good. And that's obviously with the pedigree of the Wing Commander chap. These are all good games that are looking good and will be good and will be taken up en masse. They will be, and all it takes is for a third of the subscriber base to stop playing for a few months to give cash flow problems that would cause CCP significant worry and problems. And I think this is something that, again, I hope they're considering. I'm sure they are. They have to, because it's their livelihood. But I think at the end of the day, the reality is that, could you say the subscriber model is going to last another 10 years? And I honestly think the answer to that is no, it cannot. I refuse to subscribe my Eve accounts now. I'm using whatever free deal I can get because, even though I can quite happily afford it, I don't want to pay. I don't want to subscribe accounts to a game. I would rather, embrace the fact that a game should be free to you, or you make an initial purchase and then it's yours forever. It's a product. To me, it's a product. It's not a service. And they treat Eve like a service that you have to keep paying for over and over. And that has always been my biggest issue with it. I don't, I'm unique in this. There are hundreds of thousands of people who are perfectly fine paying a subscription, etc., because they love the game, and that's admirable. But for me, somebody who's done it for so long now, I disagree entirely with the subscription model. I think it's flawed. I think it also means that you have a limited horizon of what you can develop as well, because you're pretty much given cost assurance, but I don't think you're given, I don't know, the scope and scale to then say, well, if content is chargeable, then let's make that profitable. You know, you make the P&L around your projects within the game, then you could have some quite interesting talent coming into your studios. But instead, what we're saying now is, right, come up with some good ideas and let's see if we can make them work. It doesn't feel dynamic. It doesn't feel commercial. And I think commercial aspects of every game is what pushes them forward. Planetary 2 is a great example of this, where you could buy bloody anything, and people did, and they put lots of money into it, and it made the game successful. Okay, it's not terribly successful now. Anyway, there we go. Hope you enjoyed that. A little bit of a bollocky talk about commercials.